Welcome back to Wisdom Unveiled. You know, diving into the words of Rumi, it always feels like stepping into a vast, starlit sky. There's just so much to explore.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, and today we have this unique opportunity to do just that.
Yes.
We're going deep into a collection of 40 conversations with two brilliant minds, Dr. Dinani and Dr. Loriani.
What's fascinating about these conversations, is that they weren't originally intended for a wide audience.
Right.
They're intimate, almost like eavesdropping on two friends passionately discussing Rumi's life and work.
That sounds incredible. Almost like we're getting a privileged glimpse into their personal insights.
Yeah.
And this is episode 25, so we're right in the thick of things.
That's right.
What specifically are we diving into today?
Today, we're focusing on a series of their discussions centered around a concept called merfat.
Okay.
Which you can think of as a kind of mystical knowledge or gnosis.
Ah, gnosis, that deep intuitive knowing that goes beyond the purely intellectual. I'm already intrigued. But before we get lost in the mysteries of merfat, let's make sure we set the stage properly.
Yeah.
For anyone who might be new to Rumi, can you give us a little background on who he was and why his work is so enduring?
Absolutely. Rumi, or Maulana Jalaluddin Muhammad Balkhi, to use his full name, was a 13th century Persian poet, jurist, theologian, and Sufi mystic.
Wow. What a fascinating array of titles.
Yes.
You can already tell this was a complex individual.
Precisely. And his work, especially his poetry, reflects that complexity. It touches upon themes of love, longing, the search for truth, the nature of the divine, and the human experience.
It's incredible how his words written centuries ago still resonate so deeply with people all over the world today. What do you think is the key to that enduring appeal?
I think it's his ability to speak to the deepest longings of the human heart. That longing for connection, for meaning, for something beyond the everyday. Rumi's poetry offers a glimpse into that something beyond. It invites us to step outside of our limited perspectives and experience the world through the lens of love and wonder.
It's like he's offering a pathway to a richer, more meaningful way of being in the world.
Exactly. And in these conversations, Dr. Dinani and Dr. Loriani delve into various aspects of Rumi's work, drawing upon their own deep understanding of Persian culture, Islamic mysticism, and, of course, their personal experiences.
Okay, so we've got Rumi, this incredible poet and mystic, and we've got marifat, this concept of mystical knowing.
Yes.
Now, I have to admit, whenever we delve into translated works, I always wonder if something gets lost in the process.
That's a valid concern. And in fact, both Dr. Dinani and Dr. Loriani acknowledge the challenges of translation.
Right.
They stress that we should approach these translated conversations with an understanding that certain nuances, wordplay, and cultural context might not be fully conveyed.
So we need to listen with an ear for the essence of what's being said, even if the exact wording might not be a perfect reflection of the original. It's like trying to describe a dream. You can capture the feeling, the overall message, but some of the details always get lost.
Precisely. And speaking of details, there's one fascinating detail about Rumi that Dr. Loriani brings up early on in these conversations.
Wow.
It's about his pen name.
Pen name. I didn't realize he used one. Was it something grand and poetic?
It might surprise you to learn that Rumi's pen name was actually silence.
Silence. For a poet. Now that's a paradox worth unpacking.
Isn't it? One of history's most celebrated poets choosing a name that signifies the absence of words.
Yeah.
It's almost as if he's hinting at the limitations of language, especially when trying to express profound mystical experiences.
Like those moments when words simply fail to capture the immensity of what you're feeling or experiencing.
Exactly. And Dr. Dinani suggests that this choice of pen name speaks volumes about Rumi's understanding of the nature of truth.
Okay.
He believed that true knowledge, true marifat, goes beyond the realm of words and concepts. It's something that's experienced, felt, embodied.
So it's not just about reading Rumi's words, but about letting them awaken something within us.
Yeah.
Something that words can only point towards, but never fully encompass.
Precisely. And Dr. Loriani builds on this idea by discussing the concept of divine madness in Rumi's work.
Divine madness. Okay, now we're getting into some really interesting territory. What exactly does that mean?
It's about accessing a different way of knowing, a way of perceiving reality that transcends the limitations of the rational mind.
Okay.
It's about letting go of the ego's grip on our perceptions and surrendering to a more intuitive, heart-centered way of being.
So it's not about recklessness or irrationality, but about tapping into a deeper wisdom that's often obscured by our overthinking minds.
Exactly. And this concept of divine madness is beautifully illustrated in one of Rumi's most famous metaphors, the reed flute.
Ah, the reed flute. I remember reading that poem and being struck by its beauty and its depth. How does
Yes.
it connect to this idea of divine madness?
Well, Rumi compares the human soul to a reed flute that has been separated from its source, the reed bed. This separation creates a longing, a yearning to return to that source, to experience that sense of wholeness and connection once again.
It's like we're all these flutes wandering the earth, searching for that breath of life, that divine spark to make our music.
And that search, that yearning, it's what drives us towards Marifat, towards that deeper knowing that Rumi speaks of. But as Dr. Dinani points out, the path to Marifat isn't always easy or straightforward.
I can imagine. It's probably more like a winding mountain path than a straight highway.
Exactly. And Dr. Larijani brings up a specific challenge that many people encounter on the path to Marifat. It's the tendency towards what he calls positivity.
Positivity. That sounds like a good thing. What's wrong with being positive?
It's not about being against positivity in general, but rather about recognizing its limitations when it comes to understanding something as profound as Rumi's work.
So it's not about rejecting joy or happiness, but about being willing to embrace the full spectrum of human experience.
Yeah.
The light and the shadow, the joy and the sorrow, the highs and the lows.
Precisely. And Dr. Dinani suggests that this overemphasis on positivity can actually be a form of spiritual bypassing.
Okay.
It's a way of avoiding the deeper, more challenging aspects of the spiritual path.
So it's not about putting on a happy face and pretending everything is perfect. It's about being honest with ourselves, acknowledging our pain, our struggles, our doubts, and then using those experiences as fuel for growth and transformation.
Exactly. And that's where Rumi's poetry becomes such a valuable guide. It doesn't shy away from the darkness, from the pain, from the challenges of the human experience.
It meets us where we are in all our messy, complicated glory.
Precisely. And it invites us to move through those challenges, to transmute them, to use them as fuel for our own spiritual awakening.
This is already so insightful. I'm feeling a renewed appreciation for the depth and complexity of Rumi's work.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to uncover in these
Yeah.
conversations. For instance, Dr. Larijani talks about a specific practice that Rumi emphasized for cultivating this divine madness and moving towards Marifat.
Oh, a practice. Now you've really got me hooked.
Yes.
Tell me more.
He calls it the practice of presence.
Presence. Does that mean mindfulness?
Yeah.
Like paying attention to the present moment?
It's certainly related to mindfulness, but Dr. Dinani describes it as something more than that. It's about bringing your full attention, your full heart, to every single moment, even the most mundane tasks.
So it's not just about being aware of your breath, but about being fully present in every aspect of your life.
Yeah,
From washing the dishes, to having a conversation, to simply walking down the street.
exactly. And Dr. Larijani suggests that this practice of presence is the key to unlocking the hidden beauty and meaning in every moment.
It's like Rumi is saying, don't wait for some special moment or experience to feel joy or gratitude.
Yeah,
It's all right here, right now, in the everyday moments of your life.
precisely. And Dr. Dinani emphasizes that this practice of presence isn't just about cultivating a sense of peace or contentment. It's also about facing our shadows, our fears, our doubts, with the same level of awareness and acceptance.
So it's not about pretending everything is perfect, but about meeting the darkness with the same open heart and mindful attention that we bring to the light.
Exactly. And in those moments of facing our shadows, we often discover the greatest opportunities for growth and transformation.
It's like Rumi said, the wound is the place where the light enters you.
Isn't that beautiful? It reminds us that even our pain, our struggles, can be sources of profound wisdom and healing. But cultivating this level of presence, it requires more than just awareness. It also requires gratitude.
Ah, gratitude. It's amazing how this theme keeps coming up in our explorations of different wisdom traditions.
Yeah.
What specifically do Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani have to say about gratitude in the context of Rumi's work?
Well, Dr. Dinani describes gratitude as a transformative force, a way of shifting our perspective from one of lack and scarcity to one of abundance and appreciation.
It's about focusing on what we have rather than what we're missing.
Exactly. And Dr. Larijani adds that gratitude isn't just an emotion, it's a practice. It's something we can cultivate through intentional acts of noticing and appreciating the good in our lives.
So it's not just about feeling grateful in our hearts, but about expressing that gratitude outwardly.
Yeah.
through words, through actions, through simply taking the time to appreciate the beauty around us.
Precisely. And in these conversations, they discuss a powerful story from Rumi's teachings that illustrates the transformative power of gratitude. It's the story of a man who prayed for 60 years, but his only concern was that he needed a donkey to graze on God's grass.
Wow. Well, it's certainly a striking image. What does they say about the deeper meaning of that story?
They use it to highlight how easily we can get caught up in our own desires and our own sense of lack that we miss the point entirely.
Right.
We become so focused on what we want, what we think we need, that we forget to appreciate the incredible gifts that are already present in our lives.
It's like we're so busy looking at the empty half of the glass that we fail to see the half that's full.
Exactly. And Dr. Dinani suggests that gratitude is the key to shifting that perspective. It's about recognizing and appreciating the abundance that already exists in our lives, even amidst the challenges and difficulties.
So we've got presence, gratitude, facing our shadows. It's all starting to come together. But there's one more piece of the puzzle that I know is central to Rumi's work. Love.
Ah, yes. Love, the heart and soul of Rumi's teachings.
But we're not just talking about romantic love, are we?
No, not at all. Rumi's concept of love is much vaster, much more encompassing.
Right.
Dr. Larijani describes it as an all-pervading force, a cosmic principle that binds together all of creation.
So it's more like that unconditional love, that agape that we sometimes hear about in spiritual traditions.
Precisely. It's a love that transcends boundaries, that sees the divine spark in every being, that embraces the light and the shadow, the good and the bad, with equal measure.
That sounds beautiful, but incredibly challenging.
It is.
How do we even begin to cultivate that kind of love in a world that often feels so divided and fragmented?
Well, Dr. Dinani suggests that it starts with ourselves, with cultivating self-love, self-acceptance, self-compassion.
The classic adage, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. How can we truly love others if we haven't learned to love ourselves first? If we're constantly judging and criticizing ourselves, how can we offer genuine love and acceptance to others?
It's like trying to build a house on a foundation of sand. It's just not going to be stable or sustainable.
Precisely. And Dr. Larijani adds that self-love isn't just about feeling good about ourselves. It's also about taking responsibility for our own well-being, for our own growth and development.
So it's not about being selfish or narcissistic, but about recognizing our own inherent worthiness and then taking actions that support our physical, emotional, and spiritual health.
Exactly. And as we cultivate self-love, we naturally become more capable of extending that love outward to others, to all beings.
It's like that ripple effect. The love we cultivate within ourselves radiates outwards, touching and transforming everything in its path.
What a beautiful image. And it reminds us that the path to love, to Marifat, is not a solitary one. It's a journey we undertake together, supporting and inspiring each other along the way.
Exactly. And in these conversations, they discuss the importance of letting go of attachments.
Attachments, like material possessions, or our ideas of who we are.
All of the above, really. Anything that we cling to, that we identify with, that we believe defines us.
So it's about recognizing that our true nature is beyond all those labels, roles, and possessions. It's about finding our identity in something deeper, something more essential.
Precisely. And Dr. Dinani adds that letting go of attachments isn't about denying ourselves pleasure or living a life of deprivation.
It's more about recognizing the impermanence of all things, the fleeting nature of experience, and then choosing to focus on what truly matters. Exactly. It's about cultivating a sense of detachment, of non-attachment to the things of this world, while still fully engaging with life, with all its joys and sorrows.
So it's not about running away from the world, but about being in the world without being of the world.
Yeah.
Like a lotus flower, rooted in the void but rising above it, its beauty unstained by its surroundings.
What a beautiful analogy, and it speaks to the transformative power of Rumi's teachings. They invite us to see the world differently, to experience life more fully, to connect with the divine spark that resides within us and all around us.
This has been such an incredible journey so far. I feel like we've only just begun to explore the depths of these conversations.
We have.
What other gems await us in this deep dive into Rumi's world?
Well, one of the things that Dr. Larijani highlights is the importance of understanding the cultural and historical context in which Rumi lived and wrote.
Context. It's always so crucial to understanding any work of literature or philosophy. What specifically can you tell us about Rumi's world?
He lived in a time of great upheaval and change. The Mongol invasions were sweeping across Asia, causing widespread destruction and upheaval.
Wow, that sounds like a time of immense uncertainty and fear.
It was. And amidst that chaos and uncertainty, Rumi's teachings offered a source of solace, of hope, of a deeper meaning that transcended the turmoil of the world.
It's like his words were a beacon of light in the darkness, a reminder of the enduring power of love and compassion, even in the face of suffering and loss.
Exactly. And Dr. Dhanani emphasizes that understanding this historical context helps us appreciate the urgency and relevance of Rumi's message for our own time.
So it's not just ancient poetry, it's a living wisdom tradition that speaks directly to the challenges and opportunities of the 21st century.
Precisely. And one of the key challenges that Dr. Larijani highlights is the rise of what he calls the cult of the individual.
The cult of the individual, what does he mean by that?
He's referring to the tendency in modern society to prioritize individual needs and desires above the needs of the collective.
That hyper-individualism that we see so much of today.
Yeah.
That sense of me first and what's in it for me.
Exactly. And Dr. Dhanani suggests that this focus on the individual can lead to a sense of isolation, of disconnection, of alienation from both ourselves and others.
It's like we're all living in our own little bubbles, disconnected from the larger web of life.
Precisely. And Rumi's teachings offer a powerful antidote to this sense of isolation. He constantly reminds us of our interconnectedness, of the fact that we're all part of something much larger than ourselves.
It's like that saying, we're all in this together.
Exactly. And Dr. Larijani suggests that recognizing this interconnectedness is the key to creating a more just, compassionate, and sustainable world.
So it's not just about personal transformation, it's about social transformation as well. About using Rumi's teachings to inspire us to act differently in the world, to create a world that reflects the values of love, compassion, and unity.
Precisely. And one of the key practices that Dr. Dhanani highlights in this context is forgiveness.
Forgiveness. That sounds challenging, especially in the face of so much pain and injustice in the world.
It is challenging. But as Dr. Larijani reminds us, forgiveness isn't about condoning wrongdoing or letting people off the hook. It's about freeing ourselves from the burden of resentment and anger.
It's like that saying, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Exactly. Forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves. It allows us to let go of the past, to heal our wounds, and to move forward with a lighter heart.
So it's not about forgetting or denying the pain, but about transforming it, about using it as fuel for growth and compassion.
Precisely. And Dr. Dhanani emphasizes that forgiveness is essential for creating a more peaceful and harmonious world. If we can't forgive ourselves and others, how can we possibly hope to create a world free from violence and hatred?
It's like trying to build a bridge with broken bricks. It's just not going to hold.
Exactly. Forgiveness is the mortar that binds us together, that allows us to build bridges of understanding and compassion, even across seemingly insurmountable divides.
This is all so profound and insightful. I'm feeling a renewed sense of hope and possibility, even in the face of the challenges we're facing in the world today.
And that's the beauty of Rumi's teachings. They offer us a path, a way forward, a reminder that love is the answer, even when it feels like the world is falling apart around us.
It's like he's saying, don't give up on love. Don't lose faith in humanity. The path to healing, to wholeness, to a better world, it's right here within each of us.
And Dr. Larijani reminds us that Rumi wasn't just a poet and a mystic. He was also a scholar, a jurist, a teacher. He was deeply engaged in the world, working to alleviate suffering and to create a more just and compassionate society.
So his teachings weren't just theoretical. They were grounded in real-world action and service.
Exactly. And Dr. Dhanani emphasizes that this active engagement with the world is an essential part of the path to Marifat. It's not enough to just contemplate the nature of the divine. We must also embody that divine love in our actions, in our interactions with others, and the way we live our lives.
So it's about taking Rumi's teachings off the page and into the streets, about letting his words inspire us to act differently, to be different in the world.
Precisely. And Dr. Larijani brings up a powerful example from Rumi's own life that illustrates this point.
Oh, I'm always intrigued by stories from the lives of these great masters. What story does he tell?
He tells the story of how Rumi, despite his deep spiritual insights, never stopped learning. He was constantly seeking out new knowledge, new perspectives, new ways of understanding the world.
So it's not about reaching some final destination, some point where we know everything, but about embracing the journey of lifelong learning.
Exactly. And Dr. Dhanani emphasizes that this willingness to learn, to grow, to expand our understanding is essential for cultivating Marifat.
It's about letting go of the need to be right, to have all the answers, and instead embracing the humility of a beginner's mind.
Precisely. And in these conversations, Dr. Larijani shares a story about a student who came to Rumi seeking knowledge. The student was already a learned scholar, but Rumi asked him to empty his cup before he could fill it with new wisdom.
What a powerful metaphor. It's about letting go of our preconceived notions, our attachments to old ways of thinking, so that we can be open to something new, something fresh, something transformative.
Exactly. And Dr. Dinani suggests that this process of emptying our cup is a lifelong practice. It's about constantly questioning our assumptions, challenging our beliefs, and expanding our understanding of ourselves and the world.
So it's not about arriving at some fixed or final truth, but about embracing the journey of lifelong exploration and discovery.
Precisely. And in these conversations, Dr. Larijani highlights another important aspect of Rumi's teachings that can help us on this journey of exploration and discovery.
Oh, and what's that?
He talks about the importance of cultivating silence.
Silence. We talked about that earlier in relation to Rumi's pen name. But how does silence play a role in this process of learning and growing?
Well, Dr. Dinani describes silence as a fertile ground for wisdom to emerge. He suggests that when we quiet the chatter of our minds, when we create space for stillness and contemplation, we open ourselves to deeper insights and understandings.
It's like that saying, be still and know.
Exactly. And Dr. Larijani adds that silence isn't just about the absence of noise. It's also about cultivating a sense of inner quietude, of peacefulness, of being present with ourselves without judgment or distraction.
So it's not just about turning off the TV and putting away our phones, but about cultivating a sense of inner stillness that allows us to connect with the deeper wisdom within.
Precisely. And in these conversations, they discuss various practices for cultivating silence. Meditation, spending time in nature, simply taking a few moments to breathe deeply and quiet the mind.
It's about finding what works for us, what helps us create that space of inner stillness where we can connect with our true selves, with the divine spark within.
Exactly. And Dr. Dinani emphasizes that silence isn't just about personal transformation. It's also about creating a more peaceful and harmonious world. When we cultivate silence within ourselves, we naturally become more peaceful and compassionate in our interactions with others.
So it's like that ripple effect again. The peace we cultivate within ourselves radiates outwards, touching and transforming the world around us.
Precisely. And in these conversations, Dr. Larijani shares a beautiful story about Rumi and a group of his students. They were walking through a forest when they came across a group of birds singing.
I love stories. What happened next?
Rumi asked his students, "What are the birds saying?"
Oh, what a thought-provoking question. What did the students say?
They offered various interpretations, but Rumi smiled and said, "They're saying, be silent. Listen to the voice of your heart."
What a beautiful message. It's about quieting the noise of the world, the chatter of our minds, so that we can hear the whispers of wisdom, of love, of truth that are always present within us.
Exactly. And Dr. Dinani suggests that this practice of listening to the voice of our hearts is essential for cultivating marifat. It's about trusting our intuition, our inner guidance, and letting it lead us on the path to wholeness and enlightenment.
So it's not about blindly following some external authority, but about cultivating our own inner compass, our own sense of knowing.
Precisely. And in these conversations, Dr. Larijani highlights another important aspect of Rumi's teachings that can help us develop this inner compass.
Oh, I'm eager to hear more. What is it?
He talks about the importance of cultivating a sense of wonder and awe.
Wonder and awe. Those sound like qualities of childhood, of innocence. How do they connect to Rumi's teachings?
Well, Dr. Dinani suggests that wonder and awe are essential for spiritual growth. He describes them as the antidote to cynicism and despair.
Ah, that makes sense. When we're caught up in cynicism and despair, we lose our sense of possibility, our belief in the goodness of life.
Exactly. And Dr. Larijani adds that wonder and awe help us to see the world with fresh eyes, to appreciate the beauty and mystery of creation, to connect with the divine spark that resides within us and all around us.
So it's not about denying the pain and suffering in the world, but about choosing to focus on the beauty, the love, the interconnectedness that's also present.
Precisely. And in these conversations, they discuss various practices for cultivating wonder and awe, spending time in nature, contemplating art, listening to music, engaging in acts of kindness and compassion.
It's about finding those things that spark joy, that make our hearts sing, that remind us of the goodness and beauty that exists in the world.
Exactly. And Dr. Dinani emphasizes that wonder and awe are essential for cultivating marifat. When we approach life with a sense of wonder, we open ourselves to new possibilities, to deeper understandings, to a more expansive way of being in the world.
So it's not about having all the answers, but about being open to the mystery, to the unknown, to the infinite possibilities that life has to offer.
Precisely. And in these conversations, Dr. Lorijani shares a beautiful story about Rumi and a group of children. They were playing in a field when Rumi approached them and asked, "What are you doing?"
Oh, I can already imagine Rumi's playful spirit shining through in this story. What did the children say?
They replied, "We're playing hide and seek."
Ah, such a simple, timeless game. What did Rumi say to that?
He smiled and said, "You're not playing hide and seek, you're playing find and seek."
Find and seek. What did he mean by that?
Dr. Dinani suggests that Rumi was hinting at a deeper truth. He was suggesting that the divine is not hidden from us, but rather that we're the ones who are hiding from it.
So it's not about searching for something outside of ourselves, but about realizing the divine presence that's already within us waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. And Dr. Lorini adds that this process of find and seek is a lifelong journey. It's about peeling back the layers of conditioning, the beliefs, the fears, the doubts that obscure our true nature.
It's about remembering who we truly are, divine beings, sparks of the infinite light.
Precisely. And in these conversations, they discuss various practices for uncovering this divine spark within. Meditation, prayer, chanting, spending time in nature, engaging in acts of kindness and compassion.
It's about finding those things that help us connect with our true selves, with the source of love and wisdom that resides within us.
Exactly. And Dr. Dinani emphasizes that this journey of find and seek is not a solitary one. We're all in this together, supporting and inspiring each other along the way.
It's like that saying, we're all just walking each other home.
What a beautiful reminder of our interconnectedness, our shared humanity, our common purpose.
Wow, this has been such a rich and insightful deep dive into the world of Rumi. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface, yet we've uncovered so much wisdom and inspiration.
It truly has been a journey. And remember, these conversations are just a starting point. There's so much more to explore in Rumi's work.
Absolutely. So to our listeners, I encourage you to seek out Rumi's poetry, delve into his teachings, and discover for yourselves the transformative power of his words. And don't forget to check out the full collection of these conversations with Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani. They're a true treasure trove of wisdom and insight.
They are indeed.
Well, this has been Wisdom Unveiled. Until next time, keep exploring.